The night was quiet when it began. Over the Pacific colonies, the skies glowed faintly with the reflection of orbital traffic, and millions of people believed that tomorrow would be another ordinary day. They thought the alien patrols above kept the peace. They thought the Galactic Council's taxes, while crushing, at least kept them alive. They thought the promises of protection from the Zorath Empire meant something. They were wrong. The alarms didn't sound at first. The first sign came when the colony's satellites went dark, one by one, as if something swallowed the signals whole. No one had time to react. At 1:03 local time, an enormous shape emerged from the upper atmosphere, silver and silent. Its hull bore the insignia of the peace inspectors, the Zorath guardians assigned to Earth's colonies. But tonight, they didn't land with officials or translators. They didn't make speeches about cooperation. It came with fire. The first blasts struck the fuel depots, turning the night into a burning sun. Whole streets melted in an instant. Families barely had time to reach shelters before they were consumed by firestorms. The screams echoed through the emergency channels, and every camera drone that tried to record was shot down before it could broadcast off-world. No warnings, no demands. Just extermination. Colonist Vera Lane held her son close as they hid beneath the fractured ruins of a school. Her hands shook as she whispered into a broken cum unit. "This isn't a raid. They're cleansing us." The device crackled, but carried her words, broadcasting faintly toward Earth before it. Too was silenced. By dawn, nothing living remained on the Pacific colony. The attackers erased their own records, reporting back to the Council that the humans had rebelled violently and were neutralized. The galaxy believed the lie. But on Earth, someone heard Vera's broken message. In the underground command halls beneath Old Geneva, as the last true leaders of humanity listened in, silence. The recording was short, 27 seconds of static screams, and a single sentence before it cut. "They are burning us alive." For hours, no one spoke. The Council of 12, which had spent decades begging, bargaining, and bribing, the Galactic Council for Mercy, sat frozen. They had watched humanity be stripped for resources, taxed until billions starved, and forced to surrender their fleets, their armies, and even their orbital weapons. They had obeyed every law, signed every treaty, all to avoid another war. And now, the aliens had killed an entire colony without warning. Admiral Reese Calder stood slowly. He was the last surviving commander of the preoccupation Terran Navy, a man so silent that most of the Council thought him broken by years of humiliation. But tonight, his voice carried through the chamber like steel. "They want us weak," he said. "They want us silent. They think we've forgotten what we were before they caged us. They think we can't fight." He looked around the room, his cold eyes meeting each trembling face. "They are wrong." A younger council member, shaking, whispered, "What do you mean, Admiral? We don't have fleets. We don't even have weapons." Calder pressed a code into the old table's console. Lights flickered. Somewhere deep beneath the facility, heavy doors that hadn't opened in a century groaned awake. The ground itself trembled as power conduits came alive for the first time since the last human war. A low hum filled the air, like a heartbeat. "Waking from the grave?" "We do have weapons," Calder said, as they told us never to touch again. Another counselor stepped back, fear flashing in her eyes. "You can't mean Project Revenant. That was sealed for a reason. Even. We don't know what it will do." Calder's lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. "It will do exactly what it was built to do. End wars before they begin. Make every empire in this galaxy understand that humanity does not kneel." The room erupted in arguments, voices overlapping, fear, anger, desperation. Some shouted about treaties, about consequences, about how the Galactic Council would erase Earth entirely if Revenant was used. But as they argued, the recording played again in the background. Vera Lane's voice whispering, "They are burning us alive," before static swallowed her words. The sound silenced them all. Calder looked toward the screen showing the colonies. Last known image flames painting the night sky. "We begged, we obeyed, we bled, and still they slaughter us like cattle." If they want us to be monsters, then we will show them what kind of monsters humanity can become. A heavy silence followed. One by one, the counselors lowered their eyes. No one voted. No one had to. The decision had already been made the moment the first child burned. Miles below the surface, in a chamber sealed with 10 layers of alloy, a coffin-shaped warship stirred. Its hull was pitch black, absorbing all light. It had no windows, no markings, and no sound except the deep, steady thrum of its awakening core. As engineers, pale and terrified, worked to bring it online, one whispered to another, "This isn't a ship, it's a tomb with engines." Calder stood on the observation deck above, hands clasped behind his back. His reflection in the black hull made him look like a ghost. "Wake it up," he ordered. They wanted war. Now we give them a nightmare. Somewhere in the depths of space, the stars themselves seemed to flicker, as if they knew something had changed. The galaxy did not yet know it, but tonight marked the end of humanity's chains. The day humanity broke was also the day the rest of the galaxy began to fear what was coming for them, and in the cold dark of that buried hangar, the Revenant's core pulsed faster, like a heart ready to beat for the first time in a century. The alien patrol never sent a distress call. One moment, 5 Zorth frigates were scanning the outer rim of Earth space, their scanners sweeping the silent stars. The next moment, they were gone. Not destroyed, not disabled, simply no wreckage, no signals, no signs of battle. The Galactic Council called it a navigation error. The Zorth captain in charge of the sector disagreed. He'd seen the footage before the patrol vanished. Brief, grainy image of something moving in the void. No engines. No heat signature. Just a shadow sliding past the patrol's sensors. Faster than their systems could track, then static, then nothing. The captain, a grizzled veteran named Vorek, sat in his command chamber aboard the Dreadnought Kloster. He played the footage again and again, his clawed fingers tapping against the display. The shape was long, thin, almost like a blade drifting in the dark. Not a known design, not a council-registered vessel. And worse, no signs of life aboard. Ghost. Ship, one of his officers muttered. Vorek growled, silencing him with a glance. But the words stayed in his mind. Ghost. 2 days later, another patrol vanished. This time, there were witnesses barely. A merchant freighter limped back from the edge of Earth's space, its crew pale and shaking. They claimed they saw fleet black ships, silent and cold, appearing from the void without warning. The ships never fired a single shot. Instead, they released clouds of drones, each one cutting into the patrol's engines and life support. Systems with surgical precision. The patrol's ships went dark, one by one. Their crews dragged into the void by something the freighter crew could not describe. They fled at maximum burn, refusing to look back. When the merchant captain told his story at a council outpost, the listeners laughed at first, until they saw his ship. Every surface was coated in frost, as if he had flown through the heart of a frozen storm. Inside, his crew refused to speak above whispers. Now some didn't speak at all. One had clawed the words, "They're not alive," into the walls of his cabin before being sedated. The council dismissed it as hysteria. But Vorek knew better. Something was moving in the dark. Something human. By the end of the month, 7 patrol fleets had disappeared. Most left no survivors. Those who did spoke only in fragments. No heat, no life signs. Cut the ships apart like paper. Whispers on the coms.
Ow.
But no voices. They're hunting us. Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Holograms of dozens of alien species flickered in a towering chamber of silver and glass. Atmosphere was tense, every representative arguing at once. Humanity is forbidden from fielding fleets. They surrendered every vessel. Then, explain how they are erasing patrols. They must have help. No species rebuilds this fast. Perhaps they've allied with the Scar Dominion. Impossible. No one allies with a Death World species. The voices grew louder until a small, hooded figure at the center of the chamber raised a clawed hand. The room fell silent. The figure was a clear, one of the council's oldest intelligence brokers, its face hidden beneath a veil. Its voice was a whisper, but it carried across the chamber like a chill. No one gave them these weapons, it said. No one rebuilt their fleets. The holograms turned toward it, silent. They built this themselves, in secret, and they did not build ships. They built something else. Before anyone could demand an explanation, the chamber doors burst open. A trembling officer ran inside, clutching a data slate. "Coreward Patrol Fleet Alpha has been destroyed," he shouted. "Not damaged, erased. Our beacons found nothing but drifting husks, and there is more." The chamber darkened as the officer transmitted the footage. A shaky drone recording played in the air above them. Through static and distortion, a black shape glided into viewership, massive and angular, with no running lights and no visible bridge. Its hull shimmered faintly, as if the stars themselves bent around it. Then, without a flash, without a sound, the drone's feed cut out. The room was silent. "What? What was that?" A counselor whispered, VORREK, watching from his remote. Link bared his teeth. That, he said softly, is human. Across the galaxy, fear spread faster than truth. Some whispered that the humans had unearthed ancient weapons buried on their own moon, relics from the time before the Council tamed them. Others claimed they had struck a deal with something older and darker than any empire. The word revenant began to circulate in hushed tones. Meanwhile, on Earth, deep beneath the mountains, Admiral Reese Calder stood aboard the first of the black warships as it floated silently in its cradle. Engineers and soldiers moved around him like shadows, saying little, their faces pale under the cold blue lights. The ship's core pulsed softly, a low rhythmic thrum that made the air feel alive. Calder placed his hand on the console.
"Activate."
"The fleet," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something cold and unyielding. The ship's AI responded with a voice like a whisper from the grave. Acknowledged. Ghost fleet awakening. Targets. Calder looked out into the dark beyond the hangar, where dozens of identical ships drifted in silence, waiting. "Everyone who touched us," he said.
Ice.
"Everyone who thought Earth would never fight back." The AI paused. "Warning. These actions will initiate total war. Civilian casualties will be high." Calder didn't blink. "Good. Let them know." "How it feels?" One by one, the black ships powered up. No engines roared. No lights flickered. They simply vanished, slipping into the dark between stars like predators in deep water. Hours later, in a quiet sector near the Zorath homeworld, alarms screamed. The first Revenant ship appeared without warning, its black hull reflecting nothing, its presence like a shadow that ate the stars. The patrol fleet scrambled, weapons charging, targeting arrays locking on, but their systems went dead. Every console, every light, every weapon dead. The crew shouted, panicking as their ships drifted powerless. Through the darkness, the black ship slid closer. No comes, no warnings, just silence. Then came the drones. The drones were small, spider-like machines, hundreds of them, gliding silently through space. They latched onto the patrol ship's hulls, slicing through armor with molecular blades. One by one, the Zorath ships fell dark. Inside, the crews vanished. No bodies, no screams, just gone. The last recording from the sector came from a scout frigate trying to escape. Its captain, breathless and trembling, whispered into the recorder, "They don't want to win. They want us to disappear. They're not human anymore." "Not really. There's something else now." The feed cut to static across the galaxy. Fear became terror. The Council, desperate to understand, demanded answers. But even their spies could not explain the black ships, the vanishing crews, or the silence that followed. Only one thing became certain. Humanity was no longer pleading. For survival, they were hunting. The first clear recording of the Ghost Fleet didn't come from a military vessel. It came from a tourist shuttle drifting near the trade lanes of Sector Thalnine. The passengers were recording the twin suns when the stars behind them began to disappear, one by one. At first, they thought it was an eclipse. Then the darkness moved. The The black ships slid into view long, blade-shaped, with no lights, no windows, and no visible engines. They made no sound, no signal. Dozens of them, gliding through space like sharks through deep water. The shuttle's captain panicked, firing its emergency beacon. The beacon vanished in a flash of static. The footage, however, survived, transmitted seconds before the shuttle itself went silent. When the recording reached the Galactic Council, it caused chaos. Holograms of panicked ambassadors filled the high chamber, their voices overlapping in fear. They're not running on any known power source. They don't appear on scanners until they're right on top of you. No heat, no life signs, nothing. These aren't ships there. Phantoms. Only one figure stayed. Com Admiral Vorak of the Zorith. His red eyes studied the footage in silence, his claws tapping the table. Finally, he spoke. These are not phantoms. They are machines, designed for one purpose, to erase fleets without being seen. Humanity must have built them in secret. The question is, how? An Athari scientist, her translucent skin glowing, faintly spoke up in a trembling voice. There are stories. From the time before the Council, ancient wars. Weapons powered not by reactors, but by something else. She hesitated before whispering. Weapons that fed on the dead. The chamber erupted in disbelief, but Vorak's eyes narrowed. Missing patrol crews, the silent ships, the frost. On the freighters that escaped, he'd fought in 24 wars, but he'd never seen soldiers simply vanish without bodies or wreckage. Meanwhile, far from the Council's debates, another planet went dark. The colony world of Drethus was a thriving trade hub, home to 500,000 Zoroth and allied species. It had no standing army, only a small defense fleet and a planetary shield. But when the Ghost Fleet came, neither mattered. The attack began with silence. Every comm tower, every orbital sensor, every scanner died at once. The sky filled with shadows as the black ships appeared, gliding slowly over the planet like vultures. No weapons fired. No demands came. The shields collapsed without a shot, as if something had drained their power from within. Then, the drones descended. Hundreds of spider-like constructs dropped from the sky, their bodies twisting and shifting as they moved. They didn't fire guns or launch missiles. They simply entered buildings one by one, and those buildings went silent. People vanished. Whole blocks became ghost towns within hours. The few survivors who managed to escape into the wilds swore they heard voices, faint and human, calling their names. But when they turned, no one was there. The next day, Drethus stopped transmitting. The last image sent to the Council showed the black ships leaving orbit, gliding silently into the void. No explosions, no wreckage, just emptiness. The panic spread faster than the fleet itself. Merchants began abandoning trade routes near human space. Border colonies evacuated, leaving cities empty. The Council issued emergency orders to contain the human threat, but no one knew how. The Ghost Fleet left no trail, no heat, nothing to follow. They appeared and vanished like predators, always striking where defenses were weakest. It's always leaving nothing but silence. And then, for the first time, someone managed to intercept one of their transmissions. A clear listening station near the Gliese belt picked up a faint signal as the fleet passed. It was not a voice, not exactly. It was a layered whisper, 1,000 voices speaking as one. Most of it was unintelligible, a low, constant murmur. But in the middle, clear as a blade against glass, 5 words could be heard. We are all ready. Among you, the clear operators destroyed the recording. They tried to erase it from the archives. But the rumor spread, as rumors always did. Soon, across the galaxy, people began seeing shadows where there were none. Whispers in there comes at night. Black ships in their dreams. The humans had become more than an enemy. They had become a legend of fear. On Earth, deep beneath the ice sheets of Antarctica, Admiral Reese Calder stood in the command hub of the fleet. Around him, hundreds of screens showed distant stars, intercepted transmissions and tactical maps glowing in cold blue light. The Ghost Fleet floated silently. Outside, waiting for his command, one of his officers approached. "Sir, The Council is gathering fleets to strike Earth directly. Over 1,000 ships. They believe they can crush us before we expand further. Calder's gaze stayed on the screens. They still think Earth is the prize, he said quietly. They don't understand. We're not defending Earth anymore. The officer hesitated. Then, what are we doing? Calder turned, his face pale under the dim lights. We're teaching them. They thought they could break us. Now they will learn what humans become when they are broken. Outside, the ghost fleet began to move, vanishing into the dark like a tide of shadows. That same night, 5 star systems near the Zorath core went silent. No distress calls, no wreckage, no signs of life. Only empty planets, their cities hollow. And still, as if the people had simply stepped out and never returned. On one of those worlds, a beacon lit up, broadcasting a single message in a cold, mechanical voice. The Council traced it, but it played on every channel, in every language. We do not seek peace. We do not seek conquest. We only seek balance. For every human you burned, one of you will vanish. For every world you stripped, one of yours will fall silent. We are the revenants, and we are not finished. The message ended. Silence followed and across the galaxy. Entire empires began to wonder if humanity was even still human or if they had become something far worse. The galaxy thought the Ghost Fleet was the worst humanity could unleash. They were wrong. When the first Zorath capital fell, it wasn't to the black ships. It was to the things that stepped off them. They looked human, at least at a distance. 2 arms, 2 legs, the familiar silhouette of a Terran soldier. But when they moved, it was wrong too fast, too precise, like machines wearing flesh. Their armor was seamless, black as the hulls of their ships, and their helmets bore no visors, no eyes. Just smooth, dark surfaces that reflected nothing. They carried no visible weapons. They didn't need any. In the capital of Threx for alarms wailed as these soldiers appeared in the streets without warning, stepping out of the shadows like ghosts. They didn't fire. They didn't shout. They simply advanced, silent and unstoppable. Defense drones targeted them, energy cannons unleashed full charges, and nothing slowed them. When one was finally hit by a missile, its body crumpled then. Reassembled, its armor knitting itself back together as it stood. It tilted its head at the terrified defenders before continuing its march. By dawn, the city was a ruin of empty streets and burning towers. No bodies were found, only symbols scorched into the ground at every major intersection. 5 words, burned, deep into the metal and stone. You started this. We finish. News spread faster than the soldiers could move. Entire star systems began to evacuate, not because of the Ghost Fleet, but because of what followed it. These soldiers, now called revenants by every species, didn't conquer. They didn't occupy, they erased. Cities, fleets, even archives, holding thousands of years of history, simply vanished after their arrival. It was as if humanity wasn't just seeking revenge, they were rewriting the galaxy itself. On the council world of Virelak, ambassadors screamed at one another over flickering holofeeds. Panic replaced politics. They're not human anymore, one shouted. No human can survive weapons fire like that. They're enhanced, another hissed. Cybernetic, genetic, whatever they've done. They've turned themselves into something the laws of war don't even recognize. They don't want war, a third whispered, trembling. They want fear. Above them, a transmission began to loop on every screen. A black background, a cold mechanical voice speaking in perfect galactic standard. You burned our colonies. You killed our children. Now you will feel everything we felt, 1,000-fold. The ambassadors froze as the message repeated, their faces pale. Some screamed for a ceasefire. Others demanded the complete destruction of Earth. But even as they argued, they knew neither mattered anymore. The humans weren't listening. On Threx 4, captured Zorath general was dragged through the ruins of his own capital by 2 revenant soldiers. He thrashed, screaming curses in his native tongue, until a human voice came through his come-in plant. Calm, cold, and without mercy. You think we are monsters? The voice said. But we were human long before you made us this. No. You will understand fear the way we did. The general begged for his life. His pleas echoed over an open frequency for the entire Zorith fleet to hear. Moments later, his signal cut. No trace of him was ever found. Across the galaxy, populations began fleeing toward Earth itself, desperate for safety. Billions begged for asylum, hoping humanity's rage would spare those who came seeking mercy. But the humans offered nothing. No statements, no negotiations, no safe zones. Only silence. In the command hub buried beneath Antarctica, Admiral Reese Calder stood before the tactical display, watching as the Ghost Fleet moved from system to system, leaving only dark, silent worlds behind. His officers reported rising fear across every empire, planets surrendering without a shot, fleets scattering in every direction. Fear spreads faster than war. One officer said. Calder's expression didn't change. Good, he said. Fear is the only language they ever taught us. Outside in the cold void, the black ships hovered like predators waiting to strike again. Each time they appeared, entire planets went dark. The galaxy had stopped calling them humans. They were something else. Something whispered about in terror. The Revenants. In the distant clear archives, an ancient scholar, older than most civilizations, whispered to his apprentice as they studied the latest reports. This was always their potential, he said. Quietly, we called Earth a death world, but we never understood why. It wasn't their planet, it was them. They adapt, they endure, and when you break them, they don't die. The apprentice shivered. What happens when they finish their revenge? The old scholar stared into the darkness beyond the stars. Pray they stop before there is no one left to answer that question. That night, 3 more core worlds went silent. On one, a single transmission escaped before the black ships shut everything down. A child's voice shaking, asking, "Why are the humans so angry?" A soft, trembling reply came from what could only be the child's mother, "Because we taught them how to." The transmission ended. Silence followed, and somewhere in the void, the Ghost Fleet prepared for its next target. The transmission was not supposed to exist. It's a clear archives. A network older than the Galactic Council itself was meant to be unbreachable. Its data was locked behind living codes, guarded by security drones and layers of quantum encryption. No empire, not even the Council, could reach it without permission. Yet, on a quiet rotation, deep in the frozen vaults of Clear Prime, alarms began to echo. Screens flickered, lights dimmed. The temperature dropped until frost spread across the walls. The archivists huddled in confusion as a single message appeared across every console. Written in human standard, "You looked into us. Now look deeper." Before the Clear could react, their systems unlocked a file buried so far down the archives that even their masters had forgotten it existed. The file's name was older than most empires. Project Revenant, Origin Protocol. The Clear Elder, his thin tendrils shaking, opened it. And what he saw froze him more than the cold ever could. Project Revenant was not new. It had not been built in the last few decades, nor even the last century. It had been born long before Earth ever joined the Galactic Council, during humanity's first age of interstellar war, an era so violent the galaxy had erased most records of it. The ships of the Ghost Fleet were relics, yes, but not entirely human ones. They had been constructed around a core technology found on a dead alien world, something even the Council had outlawed millennia ago. They were powered by souls. The black cores of every Revenant vessel did not run on antimatter or fusion. They ran on the stored consciousness of the dead. Every human burned by alien hands, every colony slaughtered, every soldier lost in the void, their memories, their fear, their rage had been bound into the cores. Not ghosts, not quite, but something close enough to make the galaxy tremble. The archivists watched footage pulled from human logs, footage not meant for alien eyes. Inside the core chambers of a Revenant ship, faint silhouettes of human faces flickered across the walls, whispering in overlapping voices. Their words were not screams, nor pleas for release. They were battle commands. Cold, focused, relentless. The clear elder whispered, "They don't just use the dead to power their fleet. They are their fleet." Meanwhile, the Galactic Council remained blind. They believed humanity had somehow stolen forbidden tech, perhaps traded with the Scar Dominion or unearthed ancient weapons. They didn't yet know that every attack, every whisper on the comes, every frost-covered ship was a fragment of the dead still fighting. But the rumors spread faster than truth. Soldiers swore they heard voices when the Ghost Fleet appeared, voices of people they had killed in raids on human colonies. One Zoroth pilot reported hearing his victims' names, spoken in his own language, before his ship's systems went dark. He put a plasma round through his own skull, rather than wait to see what came for him. The panic grew so severe that entire garrisons deserted, abandoning fortified worlds without a shot fired. One transmission from a fleeing commander summed it up. "We are not fighting humans anymore. We are fighting every soul they ever lost, and they will never stop." Far from the chaos, in the frozen depths beneath Antarctica, Admiral Reese Calder stood in the core chamber of the flagship Revenant Prime. The chamber glowed faintly. Walls alive with flickering faces and shadows, hundreds of voices whispered, in harmony, guiding the ship's systems, fueling its mind. An officer hesitated at the doorway, his breath fogging in the freezing air. "Sir, the Council believes we can be reasoned with. They want to send envoys." Calder didn't turn. His gaze stayed on the shifting faces. "Envoys won't stop this. They didn't stop Drethus. They didn't stop Pacifica. They didn't stop any of them." He placed his hand on the black, pulsing core. "Every time we hesitated, they burned us. So now, we don't hesitate." The whispers in the chamber grew louder for a moment, as if agreeing. Then they quieted, sinking back into the hum of the ship. The officer swallowed hard. "Bull and win. The revenge is over? When there's no one left to fight?" Calder finally turned, his expression unreadable. "Then we decide if we're still human." That same day, the Revenant fleet struck a Council core world for the first time, Virelac. The shining seat of diplomacy and wealth, its defenses were legendary. A planetary shield powered by 5 fusion suns, orbital cannons that could gut a battleship in seconds, and fleets numbering in the hundreds. It didn't matter. The Ghost Fleet didn't attack head-on, simply arrived. Every defense system failed in unison, as if the planet itself had been switched off. The fleets tried to retreat, but their drives wouldn't ignite. And in the silence, the whispers began. Council crews heard voices, not human voices, but voices of their own dead. Fallen soldiers, lost comrades, even relatives long gone, calling their names. Some froze, some fled their stations, and some opened their airlocks willingly. By the time the Revenant soldiers descended, the planet was already paralyzed by fear. No shots, no sieges, just a cold, silent takeover. When the Council finally received a transmission from Virelac, it wasn't a distress call. It was a message broadcast in every language, across every channel. For every life you took, a voice joins us. For every world you burned, a shadow walks with us. You call us monsters. We are only the reflection of what you made. The message ended. No response came from Virelac afterward. The planet went dark. Its once bright cities now just black shapes against the stars. In the following cycles, entire sectors began to surrender before the fleet even arrived, not to save their planets, but to avoid becoming part of the Revenant. The galaxy now understood the truth. Fighting humanity no longer meant facing soldiers or ships. It meant facing the dead, and the dead were endless. The Galactic Council had never moved so fast. Within 10 cycles, every major empire in the known stars had poured their fleets together, building the largest armada the galaxy had seen since the old wars. Over 3,000 ships, dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, cruisers gathered at the rim, their banners united under one goal: not to negotiate, not to capture, to erase Earth from existence. The Council leaders believed the Revenant fleet, terrifying as it was, must still rely on its homeworld. Destroy Earth, destroy its shipyards, destroy its people, and humanity would finally be finished. It was a Simple plan born from fear and desperation. But fear clouds judgment. The Armada moved in waves, its engines burning brighter than entire suns as it tore across human space. Planetary colonies along the route were bombarded without warning, their populations scattered or vaporized before they could even plead for mercy. The Council believed speed would save them. They would strike Earth before the Ghost Fleet could react. In the command chamber of the flagship Triverne's Spear, High Marshal Kithis stood before a holomap of Earth, his spined silhouette bathed. In blue light, round him, dozens of aides and tacticians whispered, their faces pale. "Scouts report no Ghost Fleet in system," one officer said, her voice shaking. "Not a single ship. No orbital defenses, no satellites, nothing. The planet is exposed." Kithis' spines shifted uneasily. Too exposed. Another aide gestured nervously. "Perhaps the rumors are true, High Marshal. Perhaps their fleet draws power from their world. Without it, they are nothing." Kithis didn't respond. His crimson eyes stayed on the hologram of Earth, floating, silently in space, green, blue, and peaceful to peaceful. "Prepare for full orbital strike," he said at last. "Burn it until the oceans boil." Leave no. The lights flickered. Every console in the chamber dimmed, screens hissing with static. The ship trembled as if something enormous had passed nearby, though the sensors read nothing. Officers shouted, scrambling to restore power. Then the whispers began. At first, faint, so faint, they seemed like tricks of the mind. But soon every every speaker, every piece of audio equipment aboard Triverne's Spear carried them. Thousands of voices, layered over each other, speaking in languages from across the galaxy. Some recognizable, most not, all saying the same thing. "You came too late." His claws dug into the table. "Track the source. Shut it down." "We can't," a technician cried. "It's not transmitting, it's everywhere." Across the Armada, chaos spread. Crews screamed as their systems failed, their drives refusing to ignite, their weapons locking shut. One by one, ships lost control, left to drift helplessly in. The void, then, the truth appeared. Not ships, not drones, just a single projection, broadcast into every bridge, every cabin, every helmet. A human face pale, expressionless, eyes black as the void. Its voice, calm and cold, echoed through every vessel. "You came for Earth, but Earth is no longer your concern." The projection shifted, showing the planet below, still untouched, still quiet. Then the image pulled back, revealing the empty orbit. No fleets, no shipyards, no activity at all. The voice continued, "We have no need for a homeworld now. We are not defending Earth. We are not defending anyone. We are hunting." And then, the Armada's sensors came alive, not around Earth, but behind them. Thousands of signatures, black and cold, emerging from deep space like predators circling prey. The Ghost Fleet. Panic erupted across the Council Armada. Admirals screamed orders, ships turned to flee, weapons charged blindly. But their drives still refused. To respond, the Ghost Fleet didn't fire. Not yet. It simply drifted closer, silent and patient, boxing in the largest armada in history, like a predator savoring the kill. On the flagship, Kithis gripped the railing so hard his claws cracked the metal. Why? Why didn't they defend Earth? Why leave it unguarded? The human face returned on the projection, leaning forward slightly as if it could see him. Because Earth no longer matters. Only the hunt does. And then, for the first time in the campaign, the Ghost Fleet opened. Fire. They didn't use beams or missiles. Instead, they released swarms of drones, millions of them, forming a living storm of metal and shadow. They moved through the Council fleet like a tide, slicing through holes, shutting down reactors, a dragging cruise screaming into the void. By the time the first dreadnought exploded, Kithis realized the truth. Earth had never been the target. Humanity had become something far worse than a planetary species. They were no longer tied to a home, no longer vulnerable. They were predators without territory. A species reborn, living only for the hunt. As the ghost fleet closed in, the last transmission from the Trivern's spear echoed across every channel in the sector. Kitha's voice, trembling, whispering a single line. They don't want victory. They want extinction. Minutes later, the largest armada in galactic history was silent. Only drifting wreckage remained, the cold void swallowing the screams in the dark. The ghost fleet turned, vanishing back into the stars, leaving Earth untouched and the galaxy trembling. For the first time, every species understood the truth. Humanity had not just survived, they had evolved into something the galaxy had no word for, and now they were everywhere. The galaxy had seen wars before, worlds bombarded, fleets shattered, empires burned. But what came after the fall of the Council Armada was not war, it was something colder. The Ghost Fleet no longer focused on ships or soldiers. Now, they went after memory itself. The first target was the Zoreth Cultural Archives on Vireless Prima, massive station holding 10,000 years of history, art, and knowledge. It had no weapons, no defenses, just a single shield and a skeleton. Crew of archivists. The Council believed the humans would target military strongholds, not libraries. They were wrong. The fleet appeared without warning. The shield failed in seconds. Not from weapons fire, but from a pulse that made every system on the station simply stop. The archivists sent desperate calls for help, offering surrender, offering everything. The humans said nothing. Instead, they boarded the station. Survivors, few as they were, claimed the black-armored soldiers didn't speak, didn't even acknowledge the living. They moved through the halls with perfect precision, collecting every archive core, every record, every artifact. Then they released the drones. The constructs swarmed through the station, dismantling walls, ceilings, even the air recycling systems, until the entire station collapsed into the void. The artifacts, the records, the knowledge all gone. The humans didn't keep them. They didn't sell them. They destroyed them. The same pattern repeated across the stars. So on Argon 3, the Ghost Fleet burned the ruling council city, not for its population, but to reduce its libraries and monuments to ash. On Keleth Prime, they cracked open the planet's moon not for resources, but to destroy the tombs of its ancient emperors. One transmission from a Keleth historian, sent moments before his death, captured the horror. They are not after our worlds. They are after our existence. They are erasing us piece by piece until nothing remains. The panic spread faster than any fleet could move. Entire populations fled their homeworlds, taking only what they could carry. Refugee convoys filled the void, hoping the humans would ignore those who ran. Some convoys survived, many did not. The Ghost Fleet never gave warnings, never made demands. It simply appeared, and the whispers began. The whispers were always the same. Thousands of voices, human and alien, overlapping in a low, endless murmur. Some whispered names, some whispered places, some whispered nothing at all, just sounds, like wind through a graveyard. Those who heard them too long often broke screaming, tearing at their ears, or spacing themselves rather than endure it. On the Revenant flagship, Admiral Reese Calder stood before a tactical map filled with red. Markers, worlds, stations, fleets, each one marked for erasure. His officers stood silent, awaiting orders. Calder's eyes were cold. Continue. Until the last of them understands. One officer hesitated. Sir, some species are surrendering before we arrive. Entire sectors. Begging for mercy. Do we accept? The chamber was silent for a long moment. Calder turned slowly, his face pale in the dim light. Did they show mercy on Pacifica? On Drethus? On any of the colonies they burned? The officer didn't answer. Calder faced the map again. Erase them. If they want mercy, they can ask our dead. Deep in the core chamber of the flagship, the walls flickered with hundreds of faces, human, faint and pale, their whispers filling the air. The voices weren't angry, they weren't pleading, they were calm, focused. The dead had become something, more than memories. They were the engine of humanity's new existence. Across the galaxy, the fear turned to something worse. Species began destroying their own archives, their own cities, hoping to make themselves too insignificant to draw the ghost fleet's attention. Others abandoned technology entirely, fleeing to primitive worlds beyond mapped space, believing the humans wouldn't hunt what they couldn't detect. It didn't work. One report, smuggled out of the ruins of the Dren homeworld, described the moment the ghost fleet arrived. The Dren had already burned their libraries, abandoned their cities, and scattered into the wilds. But the black ships came anyway. They hovered in orbit, silent, while drones descended not to kill, but to carve the planet itself, turning the ground into symbols visible from orbit. The symbols were human words, written in galactic standard. We do not forget, neither will you. By the time the drones departed, the Dren were gone, not killed, gone. No bodies, no ruins. No trace they had ever lived there in the shadowed archives of Clear Prime. The ancient scholar who had first uncovered the truth of Project Revenant spoke again to his apprentice. His voice was low, his tendrils trembling. "This is no longer war," he said. "It is a purge, not of people, but of memory. Humanity is rewriting the galaxy." The apprentice swallowed hard. Can they be stopped? The old scholar's gaze drifted to the stars beyond the viewport. "They can only be stopped," he whispered, "if they remember what it means to be human." But deep in the void aboard the ghost fleet, the whispers grew louder, and none of them sounded human anymore. The galaxy had no more armies, no more fleets. It's only fear. Across 100 dead systems, the ghost fleet drifted like silent predators, waiting, watching, erasing. Entire civilizations had vanished, not in flames, but in silence. Their histories, their art, their names all scrubbed from existence as if they had never lived. And yet, whispers began to spread, not from the revenants, but from the few species left alive. A meeting was being called, not by the Galactic Council, which no longer existed, but by those who had survived everything. The remnants of a dozen empires, their last leaders and soldiers, gathering on a cold, forgotten moon at the edge of known space. They called it the Last Conclave. In the dark halls of the moon's underground station, voices echoed, not arguing, not scheming, it's desperation. "They will find us," a clear elder rasped. "They find everyone. They're not hunting us," a scaled Ithari whispered. "They are hunting the idea of us, the memory." "Then what choice do we have?" A trembling Zoroth commander growled. "We can't fight. We can't run. So we end it here." Silence fell over the chamber. The Ithari lifted her translucent hand, her voice shaking. "We end ourselves. If we destroy our own archives, our own records, erase our history before they do. Perhaps they will pass us by." The others stared at her in disbelief. "Suicide," the Zoroth spat. "You'd burn your own culture, your own identity, for a chance they might ignore you?" "It is not suicide," the Ithari said softly. "It is the only way to survive." Before the argument could continue, every light in the chamber went dark. The air grew cold, breath misting in front of their faces. They were here. The ghost fleet did not arrive with sound or flash. Out. One moment, the void outside the moon was empty. The next, it was full hundreds of black ships, their hulls reflecting nothing, their cores glowing faintly like dying stars. No weapons fired. No warnings were given. Then the voices began, not over comms, not through speakers. The whispers were inside their minds. 1,000 voices, human and alien, layered in an endless murmur. Some spoke in languages long dead. Some repeated names. Some laughed. Most said nothing at all. From the darkness above the moon, a single projection flickered to life in the sky. A human face, pale, featureless, its eyes black voids, spoke in a voice as calm as a whisper from a grave. "You gathered here to survive. But survival is not balance. Balance is justice. Balance is memory. And you all owe a debt." The leaders trembled. Some screamed. Others dropped to their knees. Only the clear elder managed to speak. "Why?" His voice cracked. "Why this? You were human once. Why erase everything? Face tilted slightly as if considering, because you erased us first. And now. We have learned death is not the end. The projection vanished. The whispers grew louder, drowning every other sound. The black ships began to descend, but then something changed. On the flagship Revenant Prime, Admiral Reese Calder stood alone in the core chamber, surrounded by the flickering faces of the dead. Their whispers filled the cold air, urging him, guiding him, hungering for more, for another purge. For the end of every species that had ever harmed humanity, but for the first time, Calder hesitated. He touched the core's black surface. How long does this go on? He whispered.
Ow.
Many do we erase before there's nothing left but us. The faces didn't answer. They never did. They were fragments, memories, rage given form. They didn't care about the future, only vengeance. Calder closed his eyes. He remembered Earth before it all burned. Blue skies, oceans, cities full of life, not shadows. He remembered his family, his friends, all gone now. And he realized something cold and terrible. If the purge continued, there would be no one left to remember humanity either. Slowly, he opened his eyes. Enough, he said aloud. The whispers faltered. For the first time, silence filled the chamber. The faces faded, leaving only darkness and a low, pulsing hum. The ship itself seemed to pause, waiting. Calder raised his voice, firm and unyielding. We were human once. If we end them all, we end ourselves. Stop the purge. The ghost fleet froze in orbit over the moon. The descending drones halted, motionless in the void. The whispers stopped completely, leaving a silence so deep it rang in every survivor's ears. On the moon, the leaders looked to the sky, waiting for destruction. Instead, the black ships began to drift away, one by one, vanishing back into the darkness between the stars. No explanation, no warning, no promise it wouldn't happen again. The galaxy survived. But it was broken. Entire empires gone. Entire histories lost. Billions dead. Somewhere in the void, the ghost fleet still. Moved, silent, and patient. They were not gone. They were waiting. For the day someone pushed humanity too far again.